Hello friends, welcome. Here we are discussing real stories told by real people. Today we have a story about a man who received an unexpected surprise from his wife. Let's see what happens. Set up for a surprise, Jack flew home 2 days earlier than planned. His heart was filled with warmth at the thought of how he was going to celebrate Emily's birthday. The night was cool, the stars twinkled brightly in the black sky, creating the illusion of a fabulous moment. After parking the car at his apartment, Jack noticed that the light in the bedroom was burning unnaturally bright. "It's weird," Emily said she was going to have a quiet evening with a friend, he thought. He got out of the car and walked slowly up the steps to their apartment, hoping in his heart to see Emily smile when he said surprise. As he approached the door, he heard the soft sounds of R&B music and voices, which further increased his suspicions. Jack slowly turned the key in the lock and quietly opened the door. The scene that opened up in front of him was like a stab to the heart. Emily and the stranger were sitting naked on the couch, laughing at something on the TV screen. Jack stood motionless, trying to control the tremor in his voice. She started and turned around, her face instantly turning pale at the sight of Jack. The stranger, confused, quickly tried to cover himself with a blanket. "Jack, what? How? You weren't supposed to be back until Friday." Emily tried helplessly to find an explanation. "I wanted to surprise you for your birthday." Jack's voice trembled with anger and disappointment. "But it looks like you're the surprise." Emily quickly stood up, trying to justify herself. "Jack, it's not what you think. We just what?" Jack interrupted her, his heart breaking. "I thought you were spending the evening with a friend." "Who is this guy?" The man sitting on the couch began to get dressed, trying to avoid conflict. "I should leave," he said, trying to stay out of their quarrel. Emily, trying to hold back her tears, looked at Jack with despair. "Please let me explain." Her voice sounded pleading. Jack, however, couldn't stay in this apartment anymore. With a pang in his heart, he silently turned around and left, closing the door behind him. There was a tense silence in the air. Left alone in the cool street, Jack tried to collect his thoughts. Images of what he had just seen were spinning in his head. "With every passing moment, an emptiness crept into my heart." Jack walked slowly towards the nearest park, a place where he and Emily often walked, talking about the future, plans, dreams. Now these memories seemed to him a cruel irony of fate. As he sat down on the bench, he felt sad and disappointed. Questions popped up in his head. How long has this been going on? What else don't I know? Why did Emily do this? Soon Jack took out his phone to disconnect from his thoughts. But before he could do anything, the phone rang. Emily's name was on the screen. He hesitated for a second before pressing the reject button. Jack knew he wasn't ready to listen to excuses or false words of comfort. He sat on the bench until late at night, until the cold forced him to move. Jack returned to his car, not yet knowing where he was going. For a moment he thought about going home, but the thought of seeing Emily was unbearable. In the end, he decided to go to his old friend Mike, who lived nearby. Arriving at Mike's house, Jack knocked on the door. Mike opened it almost immediately, raising his eyebrows in surprise at the sight of Jack. "What happened? You look terrible," Mike said, letting him in. Jack sighed and went into the living room and fell on the sofa. It was difficult for him to pronounce the words, but he tried to explain. "I came home to surprise Emily, and I found her with someone else." Mike, without saying any unnecessary words, just walked over and sat down next to him, putting his hand on Jack's shoulder. "What are you going to do? What is it?" he asked after a pause. Jack looked down at the floor, his eyes full of tears. "I don't know, Mike. I really don't know." After spending the night at a friend's house, Jack returned to his house the next morning. Emotions raged inside him, from pain and betrayal to distrust and anger. He knew he had to meet with Emily and talk about what had happened. When he entered the apartment, Emily was already waiting for him in the living room. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and she was curled up on the couch, hugging a pillow. "Jack, she began, but her voice broke. Jack stood at the entrance, holding on to the doorframe. His gaze was heavy, and he seemed a few years older. "I do not know what you can say to make a difference," he said coldly. Emily swallowed, trying to find the words. "I know I made a terrible mistake, Jack. It was something which got out of control. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Didn't you want to?" Jack interrupted her, and for the first time his voice trembled with anger. "Emily, I came home to surprise you, and instead I got the worst surprise of my life. How can you talk about control?" Emily looked at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I do not know how to explain it. You were on a business trip. We didn't talk much. I felt lonely. That's not an excuse, I know. I lost my head." Jack walked slowly over to the couch, a shadow of fatigue on his face. "Lonely." His voice softened, but there was still resentment in it. "We're married, Emily. Marriage is not only about good times. This is support and loyalty, especially when one of us feels lonely." "I know, and I'm so sorry." Emily stood up and slowly walked over to him. "I don't want to lose you. I'm ready to do anything to fix it. Please give me a chance." Jack walked away when she tried to hug him. "I do not know if I can. How can I trust you again?" "What is it?" he asked, looking into her eyes with a gloomy expression. Emily shook her head, trying to hold back the tears. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. Maybe we should go to a divorce counselor. Maybe if we both try." Jack nodded, still unsure of his feelings. "Maybe, but I need time to think about everything that happened. I need to be alone." He turned and walked slowly to the door, leaving Emily standing alone in the living room. When the door slammed behind him, there was silence in the house, full of heaviness and uncertainty of the future. After talking to Emily, Jack spent several days all alone trying to make a decision. He stayed in a small hotel on the outskirts of the city, where he could think without extraneous stimuli. One evening, sitting in the hotel bar, he met an old friend, a colleague at work, Sam. "Jack, it's you. What are you doing here?" Sam asked in surprise, walking up to him. "Hi, Sam. I just needed a distraction," Jack replied, accepting Sam's offer to sit next to him. "You look like you're going through a rough time." "Everything is fine." Sam poured himself a glass of whiskey and motioned for the bartender to pour another one for Jack. "Not really," Jack sighed, taking the whiskey. "I found Emily with another man when I returned home for my birthday. And now, I just don't know what to do." "Wow, that's tough." Sam shook his head in sympathy. "Have you decided what you're going to do?" "I've been thinking about it. We talked, and she wants to try to fix it. But I'm not sure if I can forgive her or forget it. But if you're still considering saving your marriage, maybe you should try counseling. I know a good specialist. If you want, I can give you his contacts." "Yes," she suggested it. "It might be worth a try. But I need time to think about it. I can't just go back and pretend that nothing happened." Sam nodded in understanding. "It's great that you give yourself space to think. Anyway, I'm here if you need to talk or something." "Thanks, Sam. I appreciate it." Jack drank some more whiskey, feeling the warmth of the drink spread through his body. The next morning, Jack returned to the apartment to pack the remaining things. Emily had already left for work, so he didn't have to face her. As he was packing his books and clothes, his gaze fell on the shared photos, and his heart ached. He took one of the frames, looked at the happy faces for a long time, and then carefully put it in a box marked "Keep." Later that afternoon, when Emily returned home, she found Jack in the living room surrounded by boxes. "Are you leaving?" Her voice was filled with anxiety. Jack stood up, trying to avoid her gaze. I think I need time and space. We can try those counseling sessions you mentioned. But I can't stay here right now. Emily walked over to him, clearly trying to hold back her tears. I understand. And I'm sorry that it turned out that way. I'll wait until you're ready to talk. Hopefully we can find a way to fix this. Jack nodded, not trusting himself to speak. After collecting the last of his things, he left the apartment, leaving the closed door and the unfinished chapter of their common life behind him. After Jack left the apartment he shared with Emily, he rented a small studio in another area of the city to be able to start over. In the first days in a new place, he felt lost, returning every evening to an empty apartment filled only with the echo of his footsteps. But over time, he began to appreciate the silence and the opportunity to rethink his life. One evening, as Jack was clearing out the last boxes of things, his phone suddenly rang. The name of his sister, Lisa, was on the screen. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Jack replied with some hesitation. Hi, Jack. I just wanted to check on you. Mom said you moved out. How's the new apartment? Yes, it's all right. I'm still settling in. But it's good. It helps me think. I understand. Lisa hesitated for a moment. I'd like to know if you mind if I visit you. Maybe I'll help you put your things away, or we'll just talk. Of course, come. I'll be glad to see you. Jack felt his mood lift. He hadn't seen his sister for a long time. The next day, Lisa arrived with a homemade pie that their mother had made. Together they arranged the furniture, hung up the pictures, and added a little comfort to the sterile space of the studio. In the process, Jack told her about his feelings and worries. I'm thinking about the counseling Emily offered, he admitted as they put the books on the shelf. It might be useful, Lisa nodded. But only if you feel the need for it yourself. You have to do what you think is right for you, Jack. I know, and I haven't decided yet. Now I just want to put everything related to our relationship on pause. I have to understand what I want from life, not just from our relationship. Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. You know, I'm always here if you need support. And take your time. Sometimes the best answers come when we don't look for them too hard. After Lisa left, Jack felt a little better. He spent the evening looking at the city lights through the window of his new apartment, thinking about the future. Despite all the difficulties, he was beginning to realize that new opportunities were opening up before him. Having made the decision to give himself time, Jack also decided to pursue his long-standing hobbies, which he abandoned due to lack of time during his marriage. He signed up for photography courses and started going out for walks more often. Each step forward made him more confident. Despite the painful experience, he could build his own happiness. And so we have come to the end of this story. Please write your opinion in the comments. We will be interested to know it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like it if you liked it. We wish you good luck.